I learned a lot from that last session. It was actually one of the sessions I requested because in Maricopa County we're in the process of doing an upgrade. I've recently moved departments. I've been with Maricopa County for about 4.5, 5 years now, and I moved from our finance division, which did all of our business objects, to now I'm on the user side. I'm in our internal audit department. But as I was talking with the group that puts together the topics for us, I said, hey, there's something that I'm finding kind of universal that I did when I was writing a lot of business objects reports for the county as a whole versus me as a department, and also in my data analytics. So one of my new positions is doing data analytics for the county, which is huge data sets. And I said, I want to talk a little bit about data and how do you validate the reports when you get them. So on that, we're going to get into it in just a second, but let me give you a little history about Maricopa County. So Maricopa County is actually the 4th largest county in terms of population. So not per se size, but in population. In 2018, we had 4.4 million people, according to the US Census. It'll be very interesting to see what our new census comes out at. We are the fastest growing county 3 years in a row, and this is as of 2018. That went again, so now we are the 4th. They just haven't officially published the information yet. On average, we have 200 people per day moving to Maricopa County. So you wonder why all those new apartment buildings are going up everywhere? Because we have a lot of people moving. That's 6,000 people, just over 6,000 people every single month moving into this county. Yeah, and Maricopa County makes up more than half of the population in the entire state. So we have a very large state, I mean, especially in comparison to the East Coast. So that's pretty big. Maricopa County itself has 13,000 employees with it, and that was as of 2018. So I think we're up to about 14,000 now. At that time, we were also labeled as the 6th largest employer in the state. So we're right behind Banner, State of Arizona, Fry's, Walmart, and Wells Fargo. So, and we are downtown area right next to City of Phoenix, and we're both very large next door neighbors to each other. And then I thought this was kind of interesting. I saw this seal. I know we see it on a lot of documents, and we're like, what is it and what does it mean? So I thought it was kind of interesting. So I threw this up here. We were established in 1871. We have the scale, the tree and the horse, the state flower, scenic highways. We have a lot of parks, and the caduceus for health services. So just kind of thought it was interesting, something fun to share. All right, so into that fun thing we call data. So this is kind of business objects related, but kind of not. From a data analytics standpoint, I find that a lot of users, when you're testing your data, you test what you're comfortable with. So if you work for a specific department, if you have a favorite number, favorite color, whatever it is, whatever month you're born in, your child's born in, you generally will pick that as your sample because you're comfortable with it. Right now, I'm looking for fraud. Same thing. If I'm looking for fraud, people that commit fraud commit it based off of knowing numbers that they're comfortable with, okay? So how do we overcome this when we're testing our data? And why would we want to overcome it? One, just as we were talking earlier, create a checklist. What is it that you want to test? What is your goal? Whether you have a standard one or you have one for new reports versus modified reports, because my testing is very different depending on what type of reports I'm writing. Know your data. If you don't know your data, find someone who does. Fixed assets was not my strong point, but I had somebody in my office that knew it like the back of their hand. If I'm writing a report, I'm not going to spend hours trying to figure it out. I'm going to call them. Say, sit, look, help. I do, I'm so mean. I'm like, sit at my desk, please. Where's your data coming from? So in the county, we have an interface file that's run on a nightly basis for 90% of our universes within business objects. So on a nightly basis, we get information from our finance system put into business objects for us, okay? Where do I want to test my reports off of? Do I want to test it off my business objects universes? Do I want to test it off my SQL database that comes from the source? I always try to go back to the source, because what if there's something wrong with my universe? What if something didn't get converted properly? What if the interface failed? So I always try to go back to the source if I have that ability. So know it. And there are instances, I will admit, where I do use other business objects reports. But they're tried and true. I've tested them inside and out. I trust them to the nth degree if I'm using it as a source. Okay? Why do we want to test our data? Why do we want to put it through this kind of test? Any ideas? Are your users going to trust your data if it's bad?
My users say, oh good, there's data there, it's ready.
Your users are nice.
So I mean, you have to do it if you want to be sure it's right, because I think our users trust their data that we hand them, and it could be complete crap, but
Yeah.
they say they've tested it if they see something on the page. And like it showed up, so.
Yay!
So
I'll give you an instance of fun that I had. So I'm new to the department. I've been there a couple of years, just went through a huge upgrade. Didn't sleep, worked overtime for many months. I'm exhausted at this point, okay? 6 months of no life. So we write the report, transaction detail, which is probably a very common report that most people have. What are your transactions? And somebody says, I need the comment field added. Okay, that's an easy field. It's a comment field. Why can't we add a comment field? Throw it in there. Look at 1 or 2 departments really quick and say, looks great, send it out. It was the check comment field, which duplicates data in our system. And so somebody caught it. They reported it. We're still in the middle of go live. Everybody's at their max capacity, and we're like, we will take a look at it. You know, we've only published like 10 reports. Give me a break. We'll get to it. The person did not like that response and sent an email out to every agency head in the county to tell them how horrible Business Objects was. Just takes one upset person. So if you don't touch your data, now I've got all these agency heads calling, elected officials calling, saying, this system sucks. I can't run reports. I can't get my data. Well, it took me 2 minutes to fix the problem, but is the damage already done? Okay, so it is important.
So you bring up a fascinating point there, right? Obviously, it's the data, not business objects.
Right.
But
Well, it's how business objects assimilates the data too.
Right, but it's association there, you know, in terms of that. So, just at Maricopa County, for example, do your users think that the data is the responsibility of IT, or do they think it's the responsibility of the business?
They think it's the responsibility of IT.
That's the problem.
And I've seen that too.
Right, that's the
Yeah.
They'll put characters in.
Yep.
And it blows up reports and things because if there's a name with a plus sign and things and you're trying to create a file from that name, it blows it up. If there's an ampersand in there and you're trying to run a SQL statement and the next word is vacuum, it says, what do you want to replace vacuum with? So, yeah, it's really frustrating, but you keep turning that stuff in and, you know, that's all you can do.
We are kind of unique. So we purchase business objects through our finance system. So our finance system is CGI Advantage, and it comes packaged as part of our product with them. So we get a copy, and they have renamed it Info Advantage. So you may hear me slip and call it that also, because that's the nomenclature that they've chosen to use, because they call it their product, but it's an SAP product, and we all know it's business objects. But yeah, so CGI kind of houses the data, maintains it for us. So if there's a problem, it's the data side. But like you said, my inventory system, when I'm writing new reports for inventory, I have to be really careful because in the comments field, if I add the comments field in, I have to be careful because of that. And not only that, it actually messes up my behind-the-scenes tables when they put those special characters in. Enters cause problems with my tables. The special characters cause problems. I've talked to the people in the department, but my inventory guys are generally not IT guys, and they're just used to entering things. And even getting them to use a system is a perk. So we've implemented where we run a report quarterly where we go look at the tables to make sure that they're clean to help them out and constantly tell them, hey, you put a special character in there, let's fix that. Because it does change it and how it looks in the database on the back side. So bad data in, bad data out. So we are limited. I also volunteer with Make-A-Wish. Oh my goodness, their data. Whew. They are so pretty. I love them. I've had to go in and create custom access databases for them to take the files that they get and scrub them and fix them and spit them out so that they can absorb them into their database because the data is so horrible and they don't have business objects. It would be so nice if they did. I've talked to them, but not quite yet. But yeah, if you take that data and just load it right in, you got bad data, your reports are worth nothing, unfortunately. So it would be nice if the clients understood that a little bit more, but yeah, it's an uphill battle. So I've written my report. I will admit, I do choose a small department to start with, and I usually choose a department I'm very comfortable with and very familiar with to do my first pass of testing, because I want to see if it's even working. I don't want to run something that's going to take an hour to run to verify if the data is coming back correctly. I know the data pretty well for this department. It's a reasonable amount that it's going to give me decent results. I'll check it, go, yep, it's working. And then I've built an Excel randomizer software, or sheet, I should say, that goes through, and I can put any of my prompts into it and let it spit out how I should run my report. And I let that do the work for me. So from then on, if I want to choose one department, if I want to choose 5 departments to test, whatever prompts I want to put into it, I let that select. So it takes everything away from me, and I'm no longer selecting anything. I'm not selecting my favorite number. I'm not selecting my favorite department. So that way I'm getting a nice variety of what's going on. And I'll show you that in just a little bit. You also want to check your numbers. So especially when you're doing modifications. So I add an additional column of my chart of account elements. I add another unit. I add another object code, something to my report. Sometimes know your data. Should I see more lines? Should I see less lines? If I'm taking a column away, most likely I'm going to see less lines of data. Do a quick count. Do a sum. Are my totals coming out the same? Updates to reports are a lot easier, but check your data. Don't just assume I dropped this field in and everything's going to work out properly because I dropped a comment field which shouldn't have changed anything that duplicated my data. Okay? And granted, we didn't have a lot of data in there to know it for a few weeks after, but a simple field can cause a lot of problems. So again, simple field, test multiple departments because it may not show up in one. It may show up in another. Every department acts a little bit different. Like we talked about, user knowledge. If somebody's coming to me and saying, I want you to write this report, okay? When I'm ready to test it, I do a beta test of it, and I send it to that department because they know their data better than I do. And I say, I need you to run tests on it, and while they're doing it, then I'm doing my random sampling also, okay? Test small and large data. I have one department that's a little special. You may have heard of it. It's called the Sheriff's Office. They're a political official. They're an elected official. They use the data a lot. They're one of my larger departments. Every single time I run a report, I test them because they use the most object codes. So they use the most data. So they have a good variety. They have a good base. So you'll see in my random sampling, I've hard-coded them in. I'm always going to check them, okay? The randomized test. And then I was talking with Jared about this the other day, and he said, don't forget to test the negative. I'm like, very true. So if I've put a filter in there that I don't want to see a certain month, I want to run the report to see if it works. Are the things that I've hard-coded in on the background or have set filters on, are they actually doing what I told them to do? So don't only look for the positive things, look to make sure the things you told the report to do are actually working, okay? So with this, let's go look at some of the stuff that I've created. I am an Excel geek. I love Excel to death. Let's see, is it coming up on that screen? Perfect. So this is my randomized sheet that I created. Let me just make it a little smaller. And it took me a while to find this, and I've actually been using it for quite a while now. I should have duplicated my views instead of extending it. Okay, let me switch this really quick. Hang on a second. All right, it's not going to duplicate on me. All right, we're going to do this way. All right, so this is my list. So I do have a copy of this that I've given to Infosol so that they can post it also. And I've put the websites where I've gotten some of my formulas along with my formulas and some instructions on them and how they work. So over here on the right or left-hand side is my departments. And I want to randomly select which departments that I want to run my report for. So simply by coming into here and pressing any button, enter, F2, anything, it will change my list. So right now, this is what I have. I have sheriff, which I've hard-coded in, assessor, and treasurer. I hit F2, and of course it's going to prove me wrong today. Now it changes. So now I have a completely different list of departments to check. Sometimes I'll run it 2 or 3 times, and then whatever the third option is are the ones that I test. This helps, again, I'm not being biased. I'm not selecting certain ones. I also have a percentage over here. So if I want to test 5%, if I want to test 10%, then I just grab whichever ones I want to test. I can copy them, put it in another sheet in my checklist for testing, and say these are the ones that I'm actually testing. For fiscal period, so I'm wondering which fiscal year or which month to test for, same thing. I come in here, and it randomly changes which one I'm testing. So now I only put in the months that are active that I'm going to have data in, because if I put in every single period, then I'd be testing potentially for a lot of bad data. But this gives me the option to make the system do the work for me, and that way I'm not. I generally, for periods, I check 1 or 2 because I've got departments. So I'll look at 2 periods for each department, so it gives me a little bit of variety in there. But when I create this list, the way I create it is I go to my data. So there's a few different ways to create it. So one is you can pull every single object code that you have in your system, every single period or every single department. Or I can go into my data, and this is my transaction detail that I told you about a little bit ago, and I can pull any column that I want. So say that I want to look at activity, and I want to see, based off of activity, what do I have? I grab my column, and I paste it right here. And then I only want to get rid of all the duplicates. So I get asked this a lot. What's the easiest way to get rid of duplicates? Well, for those people that don't like Excel or have not used a lot of the functionality in it, Excel makes it pretty simple. I select my column, I go to data, and remove duplicates, which is one of these wonderful little buttons that's not visible. And do I want to just do the section that I've got, or do I want to expand it? I just want the section I've got. Select OK, and OK, and now I have my list. So I can then take that list, copy it into my randomizer, and let my randomizer do the work for me. Now, if I don't limit it based off of just what my report's giving back to me, I could be every